Well, welcome, Chale Dodge. Thank you for joining us here today to talk about your article in the book, The Evolving Analyst.
Sure. Thanks for having me, Marcus.
The article that you wrote is entitled Expanding the PROSCI Change Triangle. What gap did you notice in traditional change models?
Yeah, sure. So I've been involved with change management for the past couple of years and engaged with change managers and what they're doing. I've actually asked them, do they use PROSCI or do they use the PROSCI change triangle? A lot of them say, they can't afford the course, they can't afford the content, but they're giving advice to businesses and they're giving advice to people. And I was in a workshop recently where change managers had organised it. They wanted to talk with the project managers and the sponsors and understand who was a business owner, who was a sponsor, what was important, and us as BAs got brought across. So I think there's a narrative that seems to be missing in some of those conversations from change managers, and I can see that they've created something called PROSCI, which is Professional Sciences, a research body that helps support change management. And in there, they missed business analysis in that conversation. And because of that gap, with business analysis missing, they're missing the link to actually outcomes and delivery and the actual requirements and needs of the business. So at a high level, my book points that out and makes it relevant. Yeah.
Fantastic. And how does this really help BAs influence adoption earlier on, I guess, in this process?
Yeah, good question. So for BAs, they can think about the different roles and team members that they're working with. So maybe project managers, maybe a sponsor, maybe change management, and think about how BA is relevant and related to the work that gets done, and how that's important for BAs to be centre stage and being aware of their impact and what they're delivering, and how it should be a partnership and something that should occur as a group activity and a peer-led community that helps to deliver value for the business.
It's interesting you bring up change management, because I know there are some BAs, not a lot, who do go from business analysis into change management just because it seems to be a relatively easy transition.
I think some people do that, but I've found a lot of the people who are in change management roles often come from comms or marketing backgrounds.
Okay.
And usually great talkers, great communicators, great slide packs. And that's usually where they sit in change management in terms of comms. But I think that's where there's a gap and opportunity there, where BAs actually add the value with the rubber on the road, identifying gaps, identifying processes, identifying requirements and needs. And if you look at the PROSCI change triangle, that's missing. If you don't understand the value, don't understand the needs, well, you're missing a BA there. So I find that this is quite often in some businesses, they neglect or miss out on the BA and the value that they can add, and how they can bring them in and get them involved.
Splendid. Oh, well. So what's one change, maybe one or two changes that change insights that BAs overlook, do you think?
I think with BAs, I think there's the change impact assessment, which I think is a key thing that BAs can use. Essentially, a change impact assessment should fit on a page, a grid style format, with org headings, org structure at the top, so who reports to the C-suite, and then from there the different teams underneath that, then using some heat mapping or some numbering to indicate where the business is being impacted, and hopefully just talking that has made the visual possible for people. But just a change impact assessment can make a big difference, and that can make a change to not only where you're focusing your energy, but what's important to the business and to the teams that are involved.
Great. Change impact assessment. So those who want to read a bit more about the story, look for the Evolving Analyst at evolvinganalyst.com. Thanks once again, Chale, for giving us your insights about your story in the book.
Pleasure. Thanks, Marcus.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Himal Barielli, business analysis consultant and founder of BA Blocks, business analysis training company. Good to be here.
Great, thanks for showing up, Emal, and thanks for showing up, Michael. I know you've written an article in this book, The Evolving Analyst, and so we want to give you a few questions about your story that's in the book. What was the steepest learning curve moving into capital markets? I know you're a capital markets BA, so what was the steepest learning curve moving into capital markets as a BA?
Yes, thank you for that question. I get this question asked a lot. And I think the most important thing is that before you can add value as a BA, I think the most critical part is understanding the landscape. In simple words, understanding, the business itself, right? What do I mean by that? Like for someone who's trying to, enter it from outside in, the fundamentals are key, right? Just like how you have, the components such as, trade life cycles, understanding data, understanding how things flow back and forth. The fact that it's sort of like a very much an integrated tissue system, a human tissue system, that's why it's sort of important to understand the end-to-end flow. And this is something that I really hone upon when clients come to my, world under MD Market Insights, and, how to get them ready for the future. It's just to make sure that that is known, because that is the steepest part of learning. Because what happens is that if you are not fortunate enough to get into a project that helps you to delve into all facets of it, you better have some sort of mentoring or some sort of advisory to showcase that world for you, right? But definitely that's a great question, because I think this people really underestimate it, because okay, you can understand the fundamentals of being a business analyst, but when you try to get into a capital market business analyst, it's a little bit of a different game plan here. And everything that is attributed helps, but definitely the understanding of the front and back systems, the understanding of that world, I think would be the steepest learning curve even now, I would say. And it's nothing changed regardless of you have AI and all the other tools. The fundamentals are the fundamentals, right?
Great, awesome.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because I have heard the exact same sentiment communicated to me by some of the corporate clients that we've had for our training as well. Because it's one thing to kind of teach a business analyst how to do analysis, but to make that analysis practical in the actual business and technical environment within like a specific organization, that is a major hurdle, I think, that many business analysts experience. And so I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's not a typical answer to
yeah,
I would second that.
Awesome. Any questions for Michael, Emal, from your side?
Yeah, mine's a more broader, more general question. So in the book, you talked about how you are an engineer by training.
Academia,
by academics, you're an engineer, and you have entered into the business analysis space in the capital markets domain. So can you help us understand how that engineering education has helped you to be more successful in
100%. I think this is why I want to first say I attribute all thanks to having a home environment that never pushed me to do something but allowed me to follow my heart. I think that's very important to understand. I'm someone who comes from a fabric of problem solving. I like solving problems. So honestly, I think that was the blessing that was always a part of my DNA that even helps me now as a good BA. But to go back to your fundamental question, for me, I think at the end of the day, I was very much a subject matter based expert. And for me, understanding mathematics, understanding physics, understanding the human restraints and problems and solving ability is something that helped me at a very, very early stage to understand who I am, because I think your awareness, the earlier that kicks in, it's better for you to hone your future, right? So for me, when I did my undergrad, I was paying a lot of attention around what was going on in the world. And primarily speaking, in my undergrad, we did a lot of writing. And when I mean by that is because there's a lot of lab work, right? And most of these lab works are requirements. You have a great beginning, you have a great introduction, great historical mention of what it is, principles broken down, observations assessed, tables brought in, data is harnessed, equations implemented, which is business rules we call it, right? I mean, how different is that, right? So I think I was very blessed that even by the time my undergrad was done, I was easily like 30 requirements deep of documents that was published right? Internally, whatnot. And that just puts you at a whole different home. So that's why I didn't have to classically learn BA. But then again, I learned a lot through gentlemen like yourself putting out amazing videos, right? But I think the fact that I've written a lot of discussion documents, looking at different learning patterns, it helped me sort of get that into hone. So then obviously there was one course that I took in my undergrad that was engineering economics. So that's how sort of I found out, oh, I'm an engineer, but I can also delve into the world of commerce and capital markets. So rest as there is history, but I have to be honest, I do also have a mom who's a banker from, she's retired now. So an ex-Deutsche Bank, ex-Bank of Montreal. So I had that language in my world. But,
it's a culmination, it seems like, of many things that have kind of come together. And I think it's good for people to understand that oftentimes most people who fall into this profession don't fall into it. They don't choose the profession when they're trying to figure out what degree to take, right? Typically. That's historically been the case. And I think the example that you gave us here, I think kind of illustrates the point that it's oftentimes just a culmination of things. For you, was you did an engineering degree, so you had like a really logical problem-solving mindset. You had a mom who was in banking, and somehow throughout all of that, and that somehow is clear in the book, but that somehow between all of that, you really kind of found your way into this profession. And I think that's a good message for a lot of people to hear, because that's typically how most people fall into it. Their mom is an accountant, and maybe they are really good on the people side of things instead of maybe on more of the technical side of things. And somehow a lot of business analysts that you ask this question of, they'll have some sort of a story that matches that same pattern. So I think it's very, very, very typical, and I think it's good for people to hear that's
I think at the end of the day, that's why I always give flowers to gentlemen like yourself who put out great material out there that people can see on YouTube, and I think that's huge, right? Because believe it or not, these small seeds of segments that you get to plant in the young generation, makes a huge impact, right?
Any advice for BAs who want to go into the capital market space?
Yes, definitely. What I would say is, again, I'll go back to what I said before, but I'll increase that, right? I'll show you my footprint, right? Very simple. One of the things that I did, and I think Imal can vouch for this too, especially if you want to understand, and let's put our lens on the capital market side in Canada here, right? Let's say, for example, if you really wanted to get a sense, okay, I have the knowledge, so you can go to that client or that employee and say, hey, listen, this is a showcase of my passion and what I have to bring. Now I need for you to meet me halfway and give me the opportunity, because that's how the world works, right? So I would say, it's very important to understand the business landscape. So, courses like the Canadian Securities course, those are beautiful, and Imal can attest to this, right? I even say it now, after all these years, it's good to know all the different facets of our world, our DNA, our universe in that avenue, because then you cover majority of that sort of like that hill, right? So you can speak the language, you can have a great conversation with even the interviewer, also with your stakeholders, right? And then also, there's a whole bunch of added benefits to being that.
Any last question you got, Imal, or comment?
No questions, but I would say capital markets probably is one of those domains that is very hard to break into unless you know a lot about the subject matter. So, HR, I do mostly HR. I'll tell you, HR is not that hard to learn. Capital markets, if you're, in that space, I would say is very dense materially. Yes. And I'm glad that, Michael, I believe I'm glad that there's people like you out there who are teaching strictly the domain. Yes, in capital markets, because there's a couple of paths for people to get into this area, right? They could probably do their CFA or choose whatever certification they think is going to give them the domain knowledge, but you really do need the support of a training program that brings that domain knowledge within the context of business analysis, because none of the certifications do that. So I'm glad that you're putting that out there, Michael.
And that's why, Imal, I wasn't confident enough to do this. I've always been a teacher. Like, even when I was young, I used to teach mathematics, physics, and stuff like that, right? But in our world of professional coaching and teaching, and we're talking about clients paying you big dollars for a reason, right? So for me, until I hit my 15-year mark, I wasn't confident enough to do it the way I'm doing it now.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, thanks very much once again, Michael, for coming to talk to us about your article in the book. And
thank you, guys. It's a pleasure.
Markets. Thank you.
Thanks for everything that you guys do for the community. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.